Tuesday night is open mic night at Walter's Sports Bar. Got talent? Bring it to the stage. Come show off your skills or just sit back and enjoy the show while indulging in delicious food and ice-cold drinks. Open mic begins at 7 p.m., located just across the street from the ballpark.
And the pitch. And it's bunted up the first base line. It's a beauty. Cornelio's got to hurry. His throw to first is down the line. This one under right field. Nunez makes a diving play to pick it up, but the tying run scores.
His pitch swung on, hit in the air to deep right by House. This is way back. Peters to the warning track, to the wall, leaping. He can't get it. It is gone. Goodbye. And just like that, 2 pitches into the top of the 8th inning, this game is all even again. Riley Cornelio's second inning of his major league debut. He comes set. He kicks, he delivers, and a swing and a fly ball sliced toward the left field line. Long run for Lyle. He makes the catch in foul ground. Runner will tag. Vargas will come down the line to score, and the White Sox regain the lead. Dominguez coming set. Weimer the tying run at third. The 3-2 pitch. Swing and a miss and a splitter. He struck him out, and the game is over. The White Sox scored 2 in the 7th. Then after the Nats tie it, they score again in the bottom of the 8th inning. And then Sir Anthony Dominguez holds on. The Nationals leave the tying run at third.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He's at right field where the Nats had yet another back-and-forth game, but yet another loss. A 5-4 loss at the Chicago White Sox on Friday night in Game 1 of a 3-game series, a game in which the Nats blew a 3-1 6-inning lead, but also overcame a 4-3 8th-inning deficit. But the Nats now have lost 3 consecutive games, and in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 11-16. Coming up later in the show, injury updates on 3 Nats pitchers, starter Josiah Gray and relievers Cole Henry and Ken Waldachuk. But speaking of relievers, the Nats on Friday night went with an opener for Miles Mikolas for a 3rd consecutive time in terms of Mikolas' turns in the rotation. We in the game had very mixed results with Nats pitching. We in the game had multiple bat outs for the Nats on the base pass. We also in the game had James Wood at the plate in the top of the 9th with Luis Garcia Jr. on third base and 2 outs, but Wood struck out swinging to end the game. I think that most Nats fans would take that right. Wood at the plate in the 9th with a chance to tie the game. As Nats manager Blake Butera said during his post-game session with reporters, that's why the Nats have Wood in that number 1 spot to get as many plate appearances as possible, to be up in a spot like that.
That's why he's in that leadoff spot. We want him up there at the end of the game in a big spot. He's one of the best hitters in baseball, and tying run there on third base with Woody up, we felt really good about it.
But Mark, Wood, in this instance, did not come through.
I don't know about you, Al. I was stunned that they pitched him. I really thought first base open. I understand you're putting the potential go-ahead run on base. I would have done that and taken my chances with Dalen Lyle behind him. Now, credit to Sir Anthony Dominguez for striking him out, but I got to figure that you do run through that same scenario 10 times, James Wood's going to come out on top a good percentage of them, even if it's just drawing a walk. It was fortunate that the game came down to that, and you would have liked for him to come through for them there. And as you said, Blake Butera said, this is why you bat him leadoff. If he's hitting second, he's in the on-deck circle and never gets the chance to bat there. So maybe one of these days that situation comes up again and it pays off. There was plenty about them offensively tonight that just wasn't as much as you'd like them. Certainly not what we've seen from them through the first month of the season. But to me, this game is about Riley Cornelio and what happened in the 7th and 8th inning. And I'm sure we're going to get to that. Yes, you would have liked more offense to make up for that stuff, but I feel like this game really came down to the rookie pitcher they had out there in a huge spot late in the game.
Yeah, things did not go well for the rookie pitcher. So with the Nats pitching in this game, again, an opener. This is becoming a routine thing with Miles Mikolas. I don't know, maybe we shouldn't talk about Mikolas being in the rotation anymore. Maybe we should say that P.J. Poulin now is in the Nats rotation, because it was Poulin, a reliever, who again started a game that was supposed to be started by Mikolas. So Poulin served as the Nats opener. He tossed 1 2/3 scoreless innings, did exit the game with a runner on first and 2 outs in the bottom of the second, but catcher Drew Millis threw out Sam Antonacci in his attempt at a steal of second base, and that marked the first out for Miles Mikolas in the game as the Nats bulk pitcher. Mikolas officially allowed 2 runs in 3 2/3 innings. Bottom of the fourth, Mikolas allowed a run, gave up a 1-out solo homer by Munetaka Murakami to right center field on a 1-2 pitch to tie the game at 1. The homer went a projected 415 feet per Statcast, but we should note this. Murakami right now is a phenom, and he is putting up gargantuan numbers for the Chicago White Sox. You know, he's not necessarily getting talked about the way that, like, you know, a Shohei Ohtani is getting talked about, understood, but Murakami is one of these stories in MLB so far this season.
I mean, right now, Murakami and James Wood are kind of the 2 signature power hitters in the game at the moment, and that makes this a fun series with the 2 of them. I can't fault Miles Mikolas for giving up a home run to this guy. That's how good he's been, and if that's the only thing essentially that Mikolas gave up, so be it. The White Sox have needed something like this, something to wrap their arms around and embrace as their own. I think it surprised a lot of people when he signed here. He so far has more than lived up to it. And you could even see, I know it wasn't a huge crowd tonight, but the crowd that was here, 17,000, they were into it, and especially into it because of what Murakami is doing.
Yeah, Murakami for this regular season, OPS of 1,020. He has 11 home runs. He has been tremendous so far. So he homered off Miles Mikolas. Mikolas did as he did in this game. And then in terms of Nats pitchers beyond the opener Poulin and the bulk man Mikolas, we had 2 guys, Richard Lovelady and Riley Cornelio. So Richard Lovelady officially tossed 2/3 of a scoreless inning. He did allow an inherited runner to score. Came into the game in the bottom of the 6th with a runner on second, went out, and the Nats up 3-1. He, to the third batter he faced, gave up a 2-out RBI single by Colson Montgomery to right field to cut the Nats lead to 3-2. And now we arrive at Riley Cornelio. So Riley Cornelio in this game made his MLB regular season debut. He is not ranked as like one of the Nats' top prospects, but he very much is a rising prospect for the Nats. He was the Nats' 2025 Minor League Pitcher of the Year. He last season did something that is very rare and actually very impressive. He pitched at 3 different levels of the minors: High A Wilmington, Double A Harrisburg, and Triple A Rochester. And he so far this season for Rochester has been doing well. The Nats on Friday afternoon announced having recalled Cornelio from Triple A Rochester, but he in this game struggled. 3 runs, 2 earned in 2 innings. He issued 4 walks. He threw 42 pitches, just 21 strikes versus 21 balls. He, in the bottom of the 7th, allowed 2 runs, 1 earned. Began that bottom of the 7th by issuing back-to-back 5-pitch walks to Chicago's number 7 and 8 batters. Then committed a run-scoring throwing error on a bunt by Chicago's number 9 batter. Then gave up an RBI sac fly. Cornelio per Statcast had an average four-seam fastball velocity of 96.5 miles per hour. The stuff actually looked pretty good, but he had a hard time finding the plate, and he clearly struggled.
Look, the stuff that we saw from him in this game tells you that there is something there. 97, 98 with the fastball, a good slider as well. And I think in the long run, there's a lot to maybe be encouraged about here. But you got to be able to throw it over the plate to begin with. And when you start your major league career out by walking the first 2 batters that you face and then throwing a ball away on a bunt play, it just puts you behind the 8 ball. He ends up walking 4 batters over his 2 innings. The only 2 hits he gave up were the bunt single and then an infield single. So they were not making really good contact off him. A couple fly balls that turned into sacrifice flies because of the situations where the runners were. But what I took away from this was if he throws the ball over the strike zone, he's got a real good chance of being successful because the stuff is that good. And I know they came out of this feeling encouraged by that. However, I did not like the fact that they put him in to that kind of spot to make his major league debut. It's a 1-run game in the 7th inning. And let's be clear, he is a starter. Only one of his 79 appearances in the minor leagues came out of the bullpen. Everything else has been as a starter. The plan was for him to be the one who followed Mikolas in this game, and the idea was that he would give them length, as we saw them do with Andrew Alvarez, with Mitchell Parker prior to that. The problem was Mikolas was actually probably better than expected and pitched a little deeper into the 6th. They also did not want to put Cornelio into an inning where there was already somebody on base. So especially with Murakami up in the 6th, they go to the left-hander, Lovelady. So now you're into the 7th inning before you bring him in. You're protecting a 1-run lead. I get it, it's all about development, and maybe the actual result of the game isn't the most important thing. But for his development, I didn't love throwing him in that kind of pressure situation where one mistake can mess it all up for you. We saw how it played out. And then the fact that they brought him back for the 8th inning as well. Again, this was the plan. They knew he was going to pitch no matter what. They knew he was going to go multiple innings no matter what. I get that. But I think you have to have some leeway there and understand the situation, especially after the first inning didn't go well. Brady House tied the game back up with a home run. It's a whole new ball game here in the 8th. Maybe go to one of your regular relievers. It's not like they were all unavailable from overusage. Their guys were available if needed. They chose to do this kind of from the outset. They stuck with it, and it kind of backfired.
Yeah, I mean, Blake Butera said to you guys after the game, the plan was to pitch Cornelio in this game. Like, that was going to happen.
We knew we were using him. Right? We knew he was pitching basically after Miles, unless Murakami came up, and we'd go Lovelady on Murakami.
Here's what I think is really interesting, and you wrote about this on NatsJournal.com. So the Nats have these two pretty promising starting pitchers at Rochester, Andrew Alvarez and Riley Cornelio. Why aren't they, if they're going to be being called up to the majors, just starting games at the major league level? I know the Nats have thought about this, and there is a reasoning behind this. But, I mean, this is like the obvious question to ask. Like, why are we dancing this dance with Miles Mikolas? What is the point? You know, at some point soon, we might be asking the same thing about Zach Littell, although with him, there's a little more leash. But Alvarez and Cornelio, why are they being used in relief of Miles Mikolas? Why are they being used as relievers when they are starters at Rochester and starters at Rochester who are doing well and showing promise? What's the thought process here?
So I asked a version of that question to Butera pregame. So before we knew how it was going to go with Cornelio. And he brought up, that the Braves over the last few days had called up pitching prospects to start the games. And he felt like there's a big difference between what they were doing and what the Nats are doing, which is the Braves have had starting pitching problems, injuries. They wanted to give Chris Sale an extra day. And so they felt like it made the most sense to call up a young starter and have him just pitch right there in his typical role. The Nationals didn't feel like they were in that spot. They don't feel like any of their starters needed to be bumped. They didn't want to mess around with their scheduling like that. And obviously nobody has been hurt. So it's not a question of that. It really boils down to, are you willing to cut ties with a Miles Mikolas or a Zach Littell? And they're clearly not ready to do that at this point. He also talked about maybe using these as an opportunity for a little bit of a soft launch, so to speak, for a Cornelio or an Alvarez by bringing them up in a spot where they're not going to start. They're probably not even going to be here long term. And in fact, Cornelio is going back down to AAA after this one appearance. And I think, again, this is all kind of by design. So I understand all that. There's some logic behind it. But look at the situation that Cornelio was thrown into today. Was that a soft launch for him? No. That was high pressure, high leverage, 7th inning, 1-run game. To me, either put him in there where Mikolas pitched or just save him for another day. Have him pitch after Jake Irvin the next day after that if you're going to do it. Or don't call him up. If you really believe in him as a starter, then hold off until there's a need for a true starting pitcher. They chose not to do that. We'll see in the long run. Maybe the experience ultimately will have been for the best for him. I'll just tell you this. Interviewing Riley Cornelio after this game, he was fighting back tears. I mean, he was really down on himself, felt like he let everyone down. He had family here in attendance that flew in for this game. This was a really difficult situation for him. Now, everybody else that I talked to spoke so highly of him, not just as a pitcher, but of his mentality, and said he's going to be fine. He's a strong kid. He's got a bright future. That's all great. You hope that proves to be true. I just hope that this one appearance, because it was ugly, I hope that doesn't leave any real scars for him. And that's always the fear when you call somebody up and put them into a situation like they did with Cornelio tonight.
So here's a question, too. If we were talking about Travis Sakura and Harleen Susana and not Andrew Alvarez and Riley Cornelio, would the Nats be handling the pitchers the same way? Would the Nats handle Sikora and Susana the way that they have handled Alvarez and Cornelio in terms of how those guys have been used at the major league level here with these brief call-ups?
I'm going to guess that, yes, they would handle it differently. We don't know, of course, and one of these days we'll find out. It's probably going to be a while. Sikora's not going to be ready till next year. Susana maybe sometime before the end of this season. Obviously, higher prospects, more touted guys who are supposed to be a big part of the future. And as you said, Cornelio, not rated as a top prospect. He kind of forced the issue with how well he's pitched over the last year plus. And Alvarez, in a little bit of a similar situation, doesn't wow you to the same extent that Cornelio does with his stuff. It's more about just the fact he's had success in the minor leagues in spite of maybe the lack of a repertoire that would get scouts excited about him. So it's a good question. My guess is they probably would treat those guys differently. And maybe that shows how they really feel about O'Reilly Cornelio. Maybe he's not a huge part of the plan moving forward. But if you want to find out, if you think there's any chance of it, I just would have loved to see them use him in a more traditional spot. They didn't have to call him up. They weren't like in a spot where like, hey, we're out of pitchers. We need somebody up. Somebody got hurt. They could have continued with what they had. They chose to do this specifically for this game in this situation. And like I said, it backfired on them.
It did. Now, in defense of Paul Taboni and Blake Butera, I will say this. The White Sox are a bad team. Cornelio was brought into this game to face the bottom of Chicago's order. So, yes, it was a close game, but there are other aspects of the circumstance that do speak to it being a soft launch. So I do think we should note that. But I think you make a really key point, which is Cornelio didn't have to be called up for this game. Like, there wasn't some screaming need for that. So it is interesting to think about, why was he called up? And, was this just part of his development? Like, maybe Taboni sees real value in them calling him up for a spot like this. It's a shame it didn't go well, but, I think we all would agree if Cornelio is going to be a good pitcher, he'll be able to manage this and bury this in the back of his mind and, be better the next time. Like, obviously, that's a key part of all this. It's unfortunate, though, that he did not pitch well. And, we now have quite the streak of, after each Nats game recently, a pitcher is optioned back to Rochester, right? This has been happening over and over and over again. I can't recall anything like this with the previous regime.
Yeah, and I think we kind of knew coming into the season this might be something we see a lot of, the shuttle back and forth to Rochester. I think I'm a little bit surprised that a lot of these moves seem to be more designed moves and not necessarily just a straight up reaction to a guy's performance or certainly to injury. They've had a couple of those, but for the most part, this has been decisions that they're making because they want to have certain pitchers up to face certain teams. And as we've seen with like Alvarez and Cornelio, specific games that they thought they wanted them to be up here to pitch, even if it wasn't the intention all along for them to stay. Eventually this stuff is hard to keep up. As we've talked about so much, the messaging with the players has to be so careful and so precise to explain what you're doing. They all need to buy in on the plan for it. We will see in the long run how that goes. Can they keep it up at this rate? I'm going to guess they probably can't, but they're sure trying. I mean, this is now 22 different pitchers they have used in 27 games this season. That's a lot.
That is remarkable, and that stands out in such contrast to the way things were. I remember talking to you last season about the Nats' horrible bullpen and how there were so few roster moves. And I remember saying to you, this is not how most teams operate in modern MLB. Like, normally you do have the shuttle between AAA and the major league level, and the Nats for so much of last season were just like, Colin Poche, he's not good. Well, we'll keep sending him out there. Maybe he'll get better. And it just is so different as compared to what we're getting right now. I mean, at the end of the season, when we compare the number of roster moves regarding pitchers for this season for the Nats versus last season for the Nats, like, what kind of ratio are we going to be talking about? Because it's not going to be 2-1. It's going to be like 4-1 or 5-1. It's going to be extreme.
Yeah, 100%. Now, here's a key difference. Last year, they stuck with a lot of those guys. Why? Because they didn't have options. So they had to release them, and they stuck with them as long as they could till it became clear it wasn't going to work out. And they end up just giving them their releases. You heard from the very beginning Paul Taboni talked about the importance of having optionable players, especially in your bullpen. And pretty much everyone they have, I believe, except for C&L Perez, has options. And that was by design because they knew you're not going to stick with the same 8 guys all the time. You want to be able to move them up and down. And so they were really assembling not an 8-man bullpen, but like a 12 or 13-man bullpen where you can have interchangeable parts and you're allowed to send them up and down a bunch of times over the course of the season. Again, let's see how it all plays out in the long run. You would like to think that they settle on a certain group at some point and that those guys have some success. But until they do find the right combination, if they have guys with options, they're going to send them down and bring up a fresh arm whenever possible.
Cullen Poche, Lucas Sims, Eduardo Salazar. Shout out to all those guys from 2025.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
We've all been there. You're away for the weekend. The big game is on, and you realize you're restricted from watching. Or maybe you're trying to check the latest lines on your betting app, but your local network is blocking the site. These are the ultimate unforced errors. You can prevent this from happening to you with IPVanish. IPVanish is the powerhouse VPN designed to keep you in the game no matter where you are. IPVanish helps you stay connected to your favorite team and streaming services while you travel. But it's not just about watching the game. For the bettors out there, IPVanish provides an extra layer of security and privacy that helps you access your account safely on public Wi-Fi. Plus, IPVanish is lightning fast, so you won't have to worry about lag during those crucial live betting moments. Right now, get a massive discount at IPVanish.com. That's IPVANISH.com to get started today. Secure your play and go to IPVanish.com.
Now the set by Fedde. Here's the pitch. Check swing. Did he go? No! It'll be ball 4. Fedde put his hands on his head in disbelief walking toward the plate, thinking that Lyle had gone too far on the check swing. It is ball 4, and across the plate comes Luis Garcia Jr., and the Nationals are back in front 2-1.
The Nats offense in this 5-4 loss at the White Sox on Friday night. So 4 runs, 6 hits, which were a home run, a double, and 4 singles, 5 walks, 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position. The White Sox went with an opener in this game. Lefty relief pitcher Brian Hudson, he tossed a scoreless top of the first and then gave way to starting pitcher, Bulk pitcher, and former Nat Erick Fedde. Fedde has had a mastery over the Nats since he left the Nats. In this game, 3 runs, 1 earned in 5 2/3 innings. He issued 4 walks, so the Nats got to him to at least some extent. Big home run from Brady House, as Mark mentioned earlier. House, as the Nats starting DH and number 3 batter, 1 for 4 with a solo homer and an RBI fielder's choice grounder. 1-run 8th, a leadoff opposite field homer to right field to tie the game at 4. I was thinking about House. He and Dalen Lyle have switched places. House got off to the torrid start. Lyle really wasn't doing much, and now in recent weeks, Lyle has gotten going. And House has actually cooled off. We haven't really talked about that. His numbers have come tumbling down. So really good to see him hit that home run Friday night.
Yeah, I think he fell apart the day after I wrote the article about how much his plate discipline had improved. And all of a sudden he was striking out all over the place. And it's taken him a couple of weeks to try to get sorted out again. That was big for him in that spot and to go to the opposite field like he did. And the RBI fielder's choice was a result of his hustle down the line. That's a 1 out, I think it was bases loaded, ground ball, and he's got to beat it out to avoid the double play, which would end the inning. He does beat it out. That allows the run to score. For a while, that was the decisive run. They were up by 1 because of that, so I was glad to see that. But you're right, it's been kind of either Lyle or House, not both of them going at the same time. You'd love to see what this team could do with both guys hot at the same time. Maybe that homer is what gets Brady going.
Yeah, House now OPS of 659. Also for the Nats in this game, 2 more bat outs on the base paths. So we mentioned James Wood earlier. He in this game as the Nats starting right fielder and number one batter, 0 for 2 with 3 walks and 2 strikeouts. So a mighty 3 true outcome kind of game for James Wood. But he also got picked off at first base. Top of the first, he drew a 5-pitch walk, but he then got picked off at first base for the first out, and it wasn't even close. Wood, in his attempt to slide back to first base, essentially fell down on the infield dirt well in front of first base. You know the word grace? This was the opposite of grace. This was clumsy. I don't know if he just slipped or what, but it did not look good at all. Wood is a good athlete, so I don't really understand what happened there, but it looked ugly. And then we had this. Top of the 5th, Luis Garcia Jr. on first base, Nasim Nunez on third base, nobody out. Nunez got tagged in a rundown between third and home of Drew Millis scoring to bunt, but not actually bunting on what appeared to be a squeeze play. I mean, it seems pretty clear that was a squeeze play of some kind. Now, the Nats did end up scoring 2 runs in the inning, but it was interesting. Blake Butera, during his postgame session with you guys, was not shy about saying what happened. I mean, he blamed Nunez for that play. Butera said, quote,
"Yeah, we were a little too aggressive at third base there."
And by we, he meant Nasim Nunez. But what'd you think about those outs on the base paths?
On Wood, real quick, as Elaine Bennis found out on Seinfeld, you either have grace or you don't. You can't just have a little bit of grace. And James Wood had 0 grace on that play, as you described it. That was ugly. Now, I will give credit. That pitcher, Hudson, had a really good move. Tough lefty. You know, they probably had never seen him before. I'm sure you can watch a video and try to study him up, but I clearly caught Wood off guard and he had no chance to get back. The other one is the one that really bothers me. And yes, Butera's right in saying that, Nasim Nunez got a little jumpy there. And, I think he was just assuming that Millis was going to get the bunt down. But I talked to Millis after the game as well, asked him about the play. And essentially what he was saying is, it wasn't a good pitch to try to bunt on. It was a sweeper. It's a breaking ball. If it's a fastball or even a cutter, a lot easier to get the bat, and it's on the ball, and it's the first pitch. It's, if it's 2 strikes, you have no choice. You just got to do it no matter what. So he was trying to be a little bit selective there, got a pitch that he didn't think was one he was going to be able to get down. So he pulls the bat back. And yes, it is on the runner to make sure that there's contact made before you take off. But it's also, that's the kind of play, like once you show bunt, you kind of have to go with it unless the pitch is so far out of the zone that there's no chance. I think it was still called a strike, if I remember right. Yes, it's tough to bunt a breaking ball, but if you're Nunez, you kind of have to anticipate that he is going to get it down. Otherwise, you risk being thrown out of the plate, even if he does make contact. So I think the blame kind of goes both ways a little bit. Maybe it's just a weird situation. I think more in general, I think it was predictable. I think we know they go first and third. They're either going to try the double steal play or they're going to try a squeeze. And the White Sox seemed to know it. They were ready to backpick at third the moment that he didn't get the bunt down. Might be getting to the point where other teams kind of know the book on them right now. And if they get in that situation, they're going to put some kind of play on. That's great if you can execute it. We know the Nationals are not always great at executing these fundamental plays. Maybe just let the guy swing away and see if you can get in the run that way. And I wonder if now moving forward, they maybe take some of these plays off with a little more regularity.
It's so funny. The Nats are in on analytics like never before, and yet the team has become like bunt happy. We are seeing this team bunt, or at least try to bunt, so often. The other thing, too, about that spot is, okay, Millis is batting. I get it. He's not a very good hitter, but he's your number 9 batter. After him, Wood, Lyle, House, Abrams. Keep your runners on base and let Wood, Lyle, House, and Abrams do as they are capable of doing. Don't be running into outs. Don't put yourself in a position in which you can run yourself into outs. And yet, that's exactly what happened right there. Luis Garcia Jr. did have a 2-hit game. He is the Nats starting first baseman and number 8 batter, 2 for 3 with a double, a single, and an RBI sac fly.
And a pitch swung on, ground ball toward short. Montgomery has it, a 2nd for 1. Relay to first, not in time. Across the plate comes Drew Millis with another run. As the White Sox unable to turn 2. House hustling up the line to first, beats the relay, and picks up his 9th RBI of the year. The Nationals now lead 3-1.
All right, we have some updates on injured Nats pitchers. First of all, the expected now is official with reliever Ken Waldachuk. He is, in fact, done for the season. He on Tuesday underwent both Tommy John surgery and an internal brace procedure on his left UCL. So he is done for the season. Of course, no surprise that he underwent the UCL surgery. April 13th, the Nats put him on the 15-day injured list due to what was called left forearm tightness. And then just 3 days later, April 16th, the Nats announced having transferred him to the 60-day injured list in a clear sign that he was expected to be out for a while, and now he is out for a while, and it's a tough break for him. You feel for him. He underwent Tommy John surgery on that left elbow in May 2024. You wrote about this on NatsJournal.com, but also wrote about the news on starting pitcher Josiah Gray and reliever Cole Henry. It's a bit more complicated with those two right now. Where do we stand with those two guys?
More complicated, but I think more encouraging as well. I know everybody kind of got worried when we got the update about Josiah Gray last time that he was going in for more testing and wondering, okay, well, what's going on here? Did he have some kind of setback? What I was told is that there was no setback, really. He hadn't begun throwing yet anyways, but there was more testing they wanted to give him. We found out more details about that. I'm going to read through this because it's a little bit complicated what it is. The testing was called an electromyography, EMG test. I believe that is a nerve test. So remember, he's on the IL with a flexor strain. So they're potentially looking at the nerve in his forearm to see if everything's all right there. What the results of it were, they said he can initiate plyometrics, which is a particular type of, rehab process and, routine to go through, but that would be in preparation for the start of a throwing program. So I interpreted that as positive news. He's not had a setback. He's not being shut down for some kind of extra long period of time now. There is some work still to do before he can start throwing. I don't think he's coming back anytime soon, but this was not oh God, he has, an awful injury. He certainly doesn't need Tommy John surgery again, anything like that right now. So I think you interpret that one as being encouraging. With Cole Henry, remember he's on the 15-day IL with a rotator cuff strain. He expressed from the beginning that he wasn't that worried about it, was able to resume throwing like within a week of that. So that was good. He has now gone down to West Palm Beach. He's played catch up to 120 feet. So that's good. Eventually, he'll be ready to face some live hitters and pitch in some kind of game situation. What they haven't decided yet is, would he need to actually go on a minor league rehab assignment, pitch in Rochester, Harrisburg, Fredericksburg, wherever, or could he get that at extended spring training in West Palm? They'll make that decision here once he gets to a point that he's ready to pitch in games. He'll have to pitch in some kind of game situation before they activate him. But that sounds pretty encouraging, and that this is not going to be a long-term stint on the IL for Cole Henry.
It's funny, that test that you described for Josiah Gray is known as an EMG, and I know that because that is a specialty of my dad, who is a neurologist, and Friday happened to be his birthday, so it all kind of ties in. Happy birthday, Dad. He turned 75. The EMG is his specialty. Neurologist to the stars, Dr. Albert Galdi, and there you go. Worked out perfectly here.
Very happy birthday to Albert Galdi, but I'm disappointed in you, Al, that you didn't arrange to have him be our special guest on this episode on his birthday so that we could ask him about the EMG test, because he's going to certainly give a better answer than I did trying to describe it.
You don't want to know what he would charge us to be on this podcast, okay? I'm not sure Shovers could afford that, and Shovers can afford a lot, but I'm not sure he could afford him. And speaking of birthdays, we offer shout-outs on the Nats Chat podcast. A happy birthday to Cody Deal from Sarah. Sarah says that Cody's birthday was on Friday. There you go. So he won't hear this until Saturday morning, but this still counts via ABS as a strike thrown by Sarah. I like that, Sarah. Thank you, and happy birthday to Cody. A lot of birthdays all over the place here.
The big Friday in the DMV. Happy birthday to Cody.
All right, well, we have game 2 of this series, Saturday afternoon at 4:10. Jake Irvin will be the Nats starting pitcher. Overall, he has not been good, but he has shown signs of doing well. And if you go through the particulars of some of his recent outings, some very good stretches, but then there are the very bad stretches. And so his numbers are not impressive. Let's make that clear. But I feel like with Irvin, there is some hope when he's pitching. It's just a matter of having the good outweigh the bad. I think that's the key for Jake Irvin. There will be some bad, but there will be some good. Can the good vastly outweigh the bad in this outing? If so, maybe you get a nice outing from Jake Irvin on Saturday.
Yeah, last time out, 9 up, 9 down to get started at only 34 pitches. We talked about the high pitch count. He was having the first inning troubles. He got through all that. Then he gets to a 4th and gives up a 2-run homer. but comes back strong in the 5th and then maybe hit a little bit of a wall in the 6th. They did let him reach the 6th inning, and it didn't go as well for him there. Look, the White Sox, I don't want to discount them, and certainly Murakami is as good as anybody right now, but for the most part, this is a lineup that you should probably feel like you've got a decent chance against. I would love to see him not only get off to a good start in that game, but sustain it. Give them 5-6 quality innings, keep the ball in the yard, and give his team a chance to win. And perhaps if that situation arises and they hold a lead on Saturday in the late innings, Blake Butera will go with a more conventional bullpen strategy than he did Friday night.
You can hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. And we have a website you can check out too, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
No, there's something else. An indefinable quality.
Grace?
Grace, yes.
Oh, you think I have grace?
Some grace, yes.
Just some?
Well, you don't want too much grace or you won't be able to stand.
Oh, Mr.